Hi, this is Coach Brad, and I want to take a moment and personally welcome you to our 10-4 Good Body Challenge. Now, by doing this challenge, you are taking a huge step towards improving your health, your fitness, in getting leaner, having the body you want, and feeling better. Okay, so over the next 4 weeks, I want you to know that I am here as your coach. Reach out to me anytime that you need it. If you have a question or anything else I can help you with. Now, you should have received your success manual. In it contains everything that you will need to be successful over these 4 weeks. Between the manual itself, the meal plan, the shake guide, the grocery list, you have everything that you need. So, what I wanted to do today was give you a little bit more background information on the most vital part of success in any sort of body transformation or fitness goal, and that is nutrition. So, without any further ado, I want to present to you the secrets of successful fat loss. Now, I probably don't need to tell you that the state of our nation is pretty poor. We are in the middle of what I would call an obesity epidemic. And more so even is that we are up against we're in a major battle right now, right? Because there is every kind of nutrition philosophy out there, scam, scheme, phony method, so many things out there that it's hard to know who to trust. And in my 20 years, nearly 20 years in the fitness industry, I've learned really the key to all of this. And it comes from one of my mentors and coaches, Alan Cosgrove, who says that methods are many, principles are few, methods often change, but principles never do. So at The Body Smith, we've developed proven fat loss methods, principles, if you will, that we follow that are based on research. And I'm going to share those with you today. So the first thing that we need to really understand if we want to understand fat loss is knowing how the body actually expends or burns calories. And it does that through metabolism. Now, what's metabolism? Metabolism is essentially how you utilize or burn the calories that you consume through food. And we burn those calories in 3 primary ways. The first is the thermic effect of food, or we used to call it the thermic effect of a feeding. And what this is every time you eat food, your body has to expend energy to chew it, to digest it, to shuttle it away to wherever it needs to go in the body, okay? And certain foods require more energy than others. So for instance, sugars or simple carbohydrates require very little energy for the body to process and burn or store as fat, right? Whereas proteins and fats require a little more energy, right? Now, the thermic effect of food accounts for about 10% of our daily caloric expenditure, right? Now, the next way we burn calories is through exercise. Now, exercise only accounts for about 20% of your daily energy expenditure, right? And as you'll see, there are better ways or smarter ways to use exercise, and we'll go over some of those now. And finally, the third way we burn calories, or the largest by far expenditure of calories, takes place in what's called our resting metabolic rate. These are the calories that are required to basically keep us alive, as if we're doing nothing. Just to keep breathing, to keep moving during daily activities, all that, right? Doesn't take into account exercise. So the biggest part of your caloric expenditure comes from your resting metabolic rate. And that changes due to many facts: age, gender, a lot of things like that, body composition as well. Now, this is great. We can use this to our advantage. Now, I want to caution you on something. Most trainers or weight loss programs immediately leads you to believe that if you keep calories below your resting metabolic rate, it will cause you to lose weight. Now, it sounds logical, right? If you take in less calories than you burn, you'll lose weight. And if we can figure out that resting metabolic rate, which we can, if we just keep calories below that, that's the secret to weight loss. Now, this is actually wrong, or maybe not wrong, how do I put it? The worst, not the best way to really to change our bodies, and I'll explain that as we go. Now, you do need a gap between calories that you intake, consuming calories you burn, but it should ideally come from all three areas of metabolism. We want to have good calorie burn as we eat our food. We want to exercise smartly so we burn the most calories. And then we want to raise that resting metabolic rate so that we burn more calories at rest, okay? So, because what happens if you eat too few calories for any length of time, the research actually shows you that you will actually slow your metabolic rate. You'll burn less calories. And this is why we get so many people that do crash diets or things where they gain weight, then they lose it, gain weight and lose it. They've actually damaged their metabolic rate. They've lowered their metabolic rate so that weight loss becomes more difficult, all right? So, I mentioned this before. One of our goals should be to increase our total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE. So at the Bodysmith, we have a system that is extremely successful. I'm going to give it to you now. We want to increase your resting metabolic rate. So burn as many calories through that. And we're going to do that by increasing muscle mass, or at least maintaining it with a program of mainly heavy lifting. Because if we can keep muscle mass on you, that muscle mass is a living, breathing tissue that expends calories, it burns calories. So people with more lean muscle mass, they actually have a higher metabolic rate. They'll burn more calories while they sleep. So that's amazing. That's number one. We also want to increase the benefits of that thermic effect of food. So we're going to burn calories by eating. We're going to adjust meal frequency and manipulate the macronutrients. That's those proteins, fats, and carbs. Because remember, each of them takes more energy to digest. Some of them take more energy to digest than others. So then we also want to do what I call smart cardio exercise. We're going to burn calories by creating a metabolic disturbance using anaerobic exercise, and we'll talk more about that later. So we're going to use those methods to create a gap between the calories burned and the calories consumed, with one caveat. We want to increase calories burned so that we can consume more calories, because this whole system works on making sure that we are adequately fueling our bodies for not only the exercise we undertake, but just for the base metabolic function or physiological functions that we need to stay healthy. And we're going to do this. The Bodysmith uses a system that surrounds all of this, or ties this all together in what I call the three foundations. And to look at the hierarchy, or the order in which we need to address these foundations, we start at the top, and that is nutrition. Nutrition is number one, all right? Number two, we go counterclockwise. It's recovery and stress reduction. That's the second one. And then number three is the exercise. So today, we're going to really focus mostly on two of those, the nutrition and the exercise portion in those foundations. And we're going to start with nutrition by talking about the 10 nutrition habits of healthy, fit people. These habits, they really should guide your eating choices and help you make the right decisions no matter what situation you are in, okay? If you apply these principles, you can be successful. Now, you may be already following some of these habits. If you are, that's great. Keep doing it and be mindful of these things and how they are helpful to you. Now, you may also not be following any of these habits. That's okay. We've all got to start somewhere, okay? Each week, what I would do is continue to add a habit on. If one of these habits that you're not doing, you want to undertake one, add one of those, okay? For a week, try to master it. Once you have mastered it, it becomes easy and you're consistently doing it, then add another habit, okay? We want to make sure that you are focusing on success during this. So if you find one habit you're struggling with, just stick with it longer, okay? Stick with it a little bit longer. Don't worry about your mistakes. Instead, I want you to focus on what you did well each week. Build on those successes. Do more of those things so that you can continue to grow and learn about nutrition. Learn how you feel when you are practicing good, healthy nutrition. Okay, we also recommend that you eat at least 3 meals and 1 snack a day. Now, we used to say, you know, in the old days, it was you had to eat 5 and 6 meals every day. You don't need to do that. But I believe, you know, so don't sweat details of how many. But suffice it to say, most people do best eating about 3 meals a day and 1 snack. This helps us spread the nutrients throughout the day, take advantage of that thermic effect of feeding, okay? But more so, it helps with my second, it helps bolster this other habit here I'm going to talk about here, which is eating a complete protein at every meal and snack. That's about 20 to 30 grams for most of us, or the size of your palm, every time you eat a meal. We need amounts of protein. We need more protein than we tend to think. And if we try to wedge that into just 1 or 2 meals a day, most of us do not do a very good job of that. So we want to make sure that by spreading that protein throughout the day, that our body makes use of it the best way it can. It's the most efficient. Next habit is eating vegetables at every meal. This can be a really tough habit to master, right? So the key is to make it as easy as possible. Vegetables, you know, have things handy. I love raw green beans, carrots, things like that, cucumbers. Make it convenient for you, okay? Next habit, only eat carbohydrate-rich foods after your workout. This goes especially if your goal is fat loss. We want to really kind of wrangle in those carbohydrates to within 1 to 2 hours post-workout. This is great news because you don't have to deprive yourself of the carbs, but you do have to earn them first in your workout. Next, we got to make sure you eat some healthy fats. Fats are not the bad guys, okay? Fats are so useful in the body for anything from most of your brain is made up of fat. All the cell walls in your body are made up of fat. Nerves are surrounded in fat. You need healthy fats. The one thing to remember, if you're having a carbohydrate-based meal after training, maybe try to limit your fat in that meal so your body takes up those carbohydrates more readily and is not slowed down by the fat consumption. Next habit, drink water. I recommend half your body weight in ounces of water every single day. Now, this can be tough as well, especially if you're not a water drinker. All right, start slowly. Here's the thing about water. Most of our body is water. And if we are dehydrated, chronically dehydrated, lots of things don't optimally function. In the gym, of course, our performance is going to be bad, but our concentration, so many other things are going to be lagging behind if we're not adequately hydrated, okay? The next one, eat whole foods. Most of your dietary intake should come from whole foods. Foods closer to their natural state. Apples instead of applesauce, for instance. Potatoes instead of potato chips. There are a few times when supplement drinks and shakes obviously are useful, but most of the time you want to concentrate on whole, largely unprocessed foods, okay? Next habit, drink a shake or eat a meal within about 2 hours of finishing your workout. This is to maximize really the effects of your training. It used to be we were really tight in fitness, we were really tight on what's called the metabolic window, meaning you had to eat right after your workout. The science doesn't really back that up. You have about 2 hours, okay? So after a workout, make sure you're having a shake if you can't get anything, or a meal that is carbohydrate with some protein and lower fat after your workout. The last hot habit of nutrition that I want you to know that successful people often do is keep a journal of what you are eating. This is awesome because it can not only be a useful tool to share with me, your coach, so I can give you tips, but it also builds awareness in you. And once we have awareness, we really have the fuel to be able to make changes. Awareness really is a key component of changes. Now, I also want you to realize that this does not have to be no fun. So I'd like to talk to you about the 90% rule. So what that means is 90% of the time you're following that plan, you're following those habits to a T. 10% of the time you splurge, okay? So as you journal, this is what's great about journaling, when you have a meal that fits all the habits, you check it off. If you're not following it, you put an X, okay? This is important because you've got to have that 90% adherence to see results. If you do that, if you follow 90% rule, you are going to be well on your way to success. And this is important too because it allows 10% of the time to splurge. I don't like to call things cheating, a cheat meal. When is cheating ever a valuable or a positive thing? Cheating's never good. Splurge, plan that splurge. Enjoy that splurge when you're going to have it. I want you to live life to the fullest. When you decide to go out, have a good time, relax, enjoy it, okay? You'll often find, because you have been eating so much better and feeling better, your cravings will subside, especially if you're allowing yourself a little bit of fun time. So let's take a moment and look at that 90% rule math. So let's say you're going to have 5 meals a day. That's a lot, sure, but it works with any number. That's 35 eating opportunities a week, right? So the 90-10 rule means that 3.5 of those meals can be non-compliant. Now, what this means is 10% of the meals, I want these to be regular meals. This is one important thing. This can't be just binges or gigantic amounts of food. No, the size of the meal must still be reasonable, a normal size meal, all right? But those 3.5 or that 10%, they can be very, they just need to be about the same size. We can't go crazy here because the important thing about a splurge is you've got to limit it to that one time. Too often people splurge and that one splurge meal becomes a splurge day and then a splurge weekend. No. We've got to reel it in, make those splurge meals normal meal size. Now, some people do have some success by just taking one meal a week and going hog wild or whatever. Not my favorite. Maybe it'll work for you. I'm more of a fan of literally calculating that, or having 1 to 2 splurge meals a week tends to work for most people. Okay, now, as I said before, after those splurges, what's important is that you get back on track. Please do that. Don't get out of control. Now, let's talk a little bit about what makes a complete exercise program. So I've sketched out a little schedule here. Let's say Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you're going to do strength training. What we're talking about here is lifting heavy weights. Yes, you can use your body weight too. That can work as well, but we want it to be challenging, okay? Then we've also got to do some anaerobic exercise. These are sprints, or what's called HIIT, high intensity training, or Tabata finishers. We want to also allow some recovery exercises, things like walking at just a low intensity, right? Going for a stroll, maybe light stretching, ellipticals, yoga, things that aren't too taxing, all right? Then we've got to have time to rest. Remember, if you hearken back to the foundations talk, we're not talking that much about it today, but recovery is the second most important part. So you must give your body time to recover from the exercise you do, and by feeding it well and exercising well, you're really gonna pave that way for success. Now, as I sketched out kind of that complete exercise program, you know that the basis of it is strength training. I think I said, 3 days of strength training, more than any form of exercise. We're doing that. We're focusing on that strength training, not only because it makes you look great, makes you stronger, you can function better in every day, but we want to increase, remember, that resting metabolic rate. And in order to do that, we need to build some muscle, or at the very least maintain what we have while we burn off that fat. So let's talk a little bit about HIIT. We like to use HIIT, or that high intensity interval training exercise, instead of that long boring cardio that is the more traditional method. What it is repeated bouts of intense work, really high effort work, and then recovery. And what we do here is, so high intensity work, get that heart rate up high, then allow recovery, allow that heart rate to come down, and then high intense, and then recovery. What's high intense? If we're using a 10-point rate of perceived exertion scale, I want at least a 7, right? Shouldn't be able to talk at all. It should be becoming pretty uncomfortable. If you want to use like a heart rate calculation as a guide, about 80% of your maximum heart rate is putting us in that HIIT zone. And what happens with doing that HIIT training is it's so taxing on the body, those short bursts of very intense work, that we consume more oxygen, right, during it. And that has a big price to pay on the body. It's a lot of fuel burned up during that. So what this creates is what's known as the oxygen debt. So for 24, 36, maybe 48 hours after these bouts of intense HIIT training, our metabolic rate is up. We're burning more calories, okay? And that's the magic of this kind of anaerobic metabolic HIIT training, is the afterburn effect, it's called, or EPOC, excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, raising metabolism for after the time we're in the gym. That's pretty cool, okay? Now, what we're gonna do here is, when we talk about that exercise schedule, if you are working out 2 to 3 days a week with resistance training, lifting heavy things, well, we're gonna do HIIT training about 2 to 3 days a week. Most of us, 2 is good enough. Your chances for success with fat loss are really high combining those. If you can combine those 2 forms of exercise with your nutrition, you are gonna win big time. Now, that stuff's all good and well, but here I'm gonna give you the actual, what I call the secret to successful fat loss, which is indeed known as, or I would call it, the golden rule of fat loss, which is, if you can't continue to do what you do to lose the fat, how do you expect to keep the fat loss? So here's the question for you. Do you want to lose this fat forever, or just for a short time? You know, any unsustainable plan, and that's why when I talked earlier, all these crazy nutrition dogmas out there, if they're too unsustainable, any even regular gym goer can really burn out and get on frustration. And these restrictive plans, they do work. They give you short-term weight loss. But what they do is destroy your metabolism by lowering your total daily energy expenditure, right? How does this happen? Well, without doing smart exercise, resistance training, high intensity interval training, not eating enough protein, all those things, if we're just losing weight over and over again, we will lose not only fat, we will lose lean muscle. And we've got to keep that lean muscle up, remember, to keep that metabolic rate high. If we don't, we get in this circular cycle of frustration and disappointment. That is not what we want. So we must have a sustainable plan. Now, what's a sustainable plan look like? That can vary from person to some extent, but here's what I've found in my experience that really works for people. Strength training 2 to 3 days per week, and challenging yourself. The lifts must be difficult, right? If it doesn't challenge us, it doesn't change us. So that's number one. Then we're gonna do that anaerobic, or that high intensity interval training 1 to 2 days a week. Tends to work for most people. It allows, that's 4 to 5 days of exercise a week, allowing 1 to 2 days, maybe even 3 days of recovery a week. Awesome. Then a diet that is rich in whole foods, focusing on our protein intake is another thing, you know, and then eating starches pre and post workout. That tends to work for a lot of people. Or you can even, another simple method if we want to get into carb timing or starch timing is starchy carbs, think rice, potatoes, breads, things like that, for breakfast or immediately follow workouts. That works too. And then just making sure that we eat healthy fats. Now, some of you may be interested in counting calories. You notice I didn't mention anything about that. We talked about calories. Counting calories, yes, it can work. It works for many people, but for many people, it does not work. If you want to understand calorie counting, contact me. I'd be happy to talk to you about it, sketch out some amounts of calories that would work for you. We could break down macros, all that. But most people don't need that. So what you can do instead of counting calories is, again, watch those whole foods, all those things we talked about. I want you to splurge every now and again, okay? Enjoy your life. No food is taboo. You just need to reorder how much of a role it plays in your life, right? I love pizza. I would never give it up. But I need to understand that it does not need or should not play a large role in my dietary intake consistently, right? Balance exercise with eating so you don't have too much of a caloric deficit. You know, we don't want to cut those calories so low, so we've got to exercise smart. You know, another thing, goal setting. Have realistic and measurable goals. You know, and the final thing to find a sustainable plan, hire a professional, right? That's our job. A good coach helps you not only determine your goals or work through those goals, but they help you through roadblocks. They're there to walk with you. They're there to meet challenges with you, all that kind of stuff. That's what a professional can do for you. So if you need any more help with any of this, just reach out and contact me. I would be happy to help. So there is our secrets, or there are our secrets to successful fat loss. This is Coach Brad, and I will see you in the gym.